Welcome to the Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast. I am Calwood resident Arsenal fan, and I am here with Captain America, Christian Pulisic, Rick Nelson. So, Rick, does your T-shirt portend a Christian Pulisic signing at Tottenham?
Yeah, definitely not. We don't want him. We've had enough Chelsea outcasts.
Tell me about it. So have we, including the last one, the bad Willian. Although I guess we should be relatively happy with Jorginho. Although I think
for yesterday.
I was going to say we might have gone to that well once too often.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
What did the man say when he finished drinking the milkshake?
I don't know. What did the man say when he finished drinking the milkshake?
That was great while it lasted. And that's what Arsenal fans are saying today.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure
because it was great while it lasted.
Yeah. It's been a good run.
Yes, it has. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But now it's and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next two matches.
I thought there was a fire drill at the Emirates yesterday afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, they were hearkening back to late Wenger era. But on today's episode, we're going to talk about the Villa-Tottenham match, which didn't have a much better result than the Arsenal-Brighton match. Wah, wah, wah. And then we'll talk about some previews. Who does Tottenham play this weekend?
Who cares? Pretty much what I'm just reiterating what the players have said. It's what I heard.
Well, Arsenal has Nottingham Forest, so apparently we're going to do one preview, and I assure you that it will not be much of a preview. So, Tottenham played on the Saturday, so in chronological order, we have to talk about the Emery-led Aston Villa team.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a good way to start. When Unai Emery took over Villa, they were 14 points behind us.
Incredible.
14 points, Cal.
And they caught you.
And they've caught us. That is a really good snapshot of how shite we are.
Yeah.
Right, and how bad we've been this year.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a really good indicator of that.
Yeah, and, Emery is a good manager, especially for a team like Villa, who really doesn't have a lot of so-called stars.
True.
His weakness is probably man management and being able to handle the big names. So I don't think bringing him in to Tottenham would have really helped y'all any, because Harry Kane and, those guys would have just ran all over him.
Yeah. No, I think we'll get into this in another podcast, maybe in the review, but he's a good fit.
Let's talk about Aston Villa.
But he's a good fit for Villa, right? Which is what you want in a manager, right? The fit has got to be right.
That's right.
I say that because you've got to look at us as an example of what happens when you don't get a manager that fits.
True.
Right?
Very true.
I mean, there was the contrast there of the two teams, really.
Sure.
The game itself, really, the manager bounce has gone, Ryan Mason's mates or not, they didn't turn out for him on Saturday.
Sure.
which again, the bounce has gone. That underlying problem reared its ugly head again.
Mm-hmm.
No desire, no spirit, no passion, right? Static players standing around, no give and go, um, no press. I mean, the press was like ridiculous. Um, Villa were good for the win. I mean, Tottenham were if we'd have played our cards right, we could have probably come away with a draw, which we
Mm-hmm.
would not really have deserved.
Right.
Um, we conceded a goal again in the opening 10 minutes.
Mm.
Um, that's the seventh time in 5 games we've conceded in 10 minutes.
Wait. Oh, yeah. Because sometimes it's been more than one.
Been more than one goal, right? Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible. The first half, the defense was just too deep. I mean, they just sat way back again.
Uh-huh.
It just really frustrating to watch. Just so frustrating. No shots on target in the first half. I mean, like literally, Conference League, here we come.
At best.
At best. I mean, God willing, we don't even make that.
Well, yeah, it's certainly not looking like it.
Yeah, because we don't need it. I just
Well,
don't think
yeah.
we just don't need it. Not at
You
this
know,
point.
yeah, on the one hand, true, but on the other, I mean, Harry Kane needs him a trophy. He needs to find a way. I mean, like you said last week, you know the painter's helper cup. He could he should go all out for that.
Yeah.
Certainly doesn't seem like the players care about it.
Well, you wouldn't have thought so on Saturday morning watching them.
That's what I mean.
I mean, they were literally standing around again, which drives me absolutely mad when you're just
Oh,
flat-footed, just standing
it's
there,
got to.
you know.
It's got to.
Um, Højbjerg and Skip. Højbjerg looks absolutely knackered, which he should. He's
Mhm.
played almost every game this year.
Right.
Skip looks tired because he's played every game since he's come back from injury. You
Hmm.
know, um, the real positives of this game was Basuma comeback. I mean, he is a very, very good player.
Yeah, because hadn't seen very much of him at all.
No, well, he's been injured. I mean, just like Bentancur. But Villa, I mean, they were pretty much all over us, really. Foster made some saves. Ollie Watkins, and I mentioned last week, this was the guy that we had to watch out for. I mean, tore us apart. Just tore us apart.
Hmm.
He had a great opportunity to score. He just missed it a little bit. If his dreadlocks had been a little bit longer as he dived, he would have hit the ball and gone in. You know what I mean?
uh,
But it was all Villa, really, that first half. We were absolutely, and I know you've not heard me say this on this podcast before. In the first half, we were absolutely appalling, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, just dreadful to watch. I mean, just I don't know, man. I don't know. I just it's like they were back to normal again.
Hmm.
You know.
So, how many games has Mason managed?
I think this is like the third one. I think
Third
Man
one.
United. Do we have Man United? Man United, Crystal Palace, Liverpool in this game. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I mean, it's
fourth
nothing
one.
to go on, really. But
No, but I was just interested as to how long the new manager bounce lasted.
yeah, I mean, look, we did improve in the second half, which I mean, it would not be hard to do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
um, Kane should have scored. It was almost one-on-one with Martinez, but he fired it straight at him. Romero again, just a reckless tackle just outside the 18-yard box. Just brought the guy down. They get a free kick. Forster should have saved it. Diaz put it in. I mean, Forster. We had 6 men in the wall. I mean, how many more do you need?
Yeah, and I mean, he just like barely moved and just flicked it over the wall.
Yeah,
I mean, that looked like the easiest free kick goal of all time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, Villa drew level with us on points. They needed one more goal to go above us on goal difference. You
No
know,
kidding. I
yeah.
didn't know that.
But but the game did change when Basuma and Kulusevski come on. I mean, it changed.
Hmm.
Um, we did get a bit more creative. Kulusevski made some runs on the left, cutting in. Basuma looked good.
Who
Um,
did he come in for?
uh, for Richarlison, because Richarlison is awful. It's
Yeah.
terrible. I
I
mean,
mean, 60 million for that guy. Good grief.
well, I think it's. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I mean, you can look at Son and then look at Richarlison. Are they both having a similar season? I don't
Hmm.
know, right?
Hmm.
But if you would expect that halfway through next season or a couple of months in, if the ball is still bouncing off of Richarlison the way it is now,
Hmm.
that there will be questions asked.
Yeah.
I think I think he's just coming up to the end of his honeymoon with Tottenham
Hmm.
right now.
Sure.
So maybe a little bit bulletproof for now.
He
But
shouldn't be next season. I mean, what's he got? One goal?
that's it. So come next season, the same for Son. Hey, shape up or ship out. That you can't we can't carry you for another season.
Well, and I didn't know, I wasn't anticipating getting into this now, but we might as well jump into it. So I've been reading the rumors, and it appears that you're not going to pick up the option to buy Kulishevsky.
Yeah, and there are other rumors that we are.
Okay,
So
okay.
it looks like
So
we are actually though.
so where do you fall on that?
Yeah, I would want him. Look, I
Yeah,
think
you got to have him.
there's not to make excuses. I mean, but we have spoke about this before. It's like if you've got Son, Richarlison, and Kulusevski, who have not been on form,
Hmm.
and they are three key components to your team.
Yeah, huge.
There's no doubt about it. If you've got three players on your team that are
Hmm.
not performing, you're in trouble,
Hmm.
right? And they are key components to that team.
Right.
You know, um, and they haven't been performing. Kulusevski's been of the three maybe a little bit better. We have glimpses from him, but nowhere near since he's come back from injury.
Hmm.
Nowhere near. He hasn't been getting in the regular starts either. So I think he's worth the money because he's got the potential there.
Well, if y'all don't buy him, I would love for Arsenal to buy him.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
Richarlison
we
is like Richarlison really, I mean, really has to step up to the plate next year. Just
yeah, I
does.
mean, to justify that price tag. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, I mean, he could score 20 goals and not justify that price tag.
Yeah.
I mean, you pay that kind of money, and we paid 20 million for Gabriel. We paid 20 million for Kivior. I mean, that's 40 million for our two starting center halves. I mean, you could buy three center halves, totally redo your defense for 60 million.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing for me that stood out in the game was Kane. I mean, and I do say this every week. I mean, Kane scored again. He just does his thing. But Kane played more as a number 10,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I'm not I mean, he can play that number 10, but I'm not a fan of him starting out as an out and out number 10,
Right.
right? But we had Richarlison in the team. And the problem for me with that is if Kane's a number 9, then when he comes back, he usually brings the defender with him,
Right.
right? Which gives you an opening, right? Gives you some
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. When he starts as a number 10, it you'll see in games, and this was in Villa, players like John McGinn just like flies around crap on him, like really hitting him hard with tackles
Right.
in the midfield because he's
Right.
back there. And then you'll see Kane in halfway in our half with the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like shouting at the TV, what is he doing there?
Right. Right.
You know, But that's the problem. When he starts as a number 10, he's already further down the pitch.
Yeah, for sure. For
And then
sure.
he's going to drift into our half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when he starts out as an out and out number 9, he's higher up, and if he does drift out, he brings a defender or someone with him.
Sure. And I'm sure the idea is to get Richarlison and Son in behind. And
Well,
Kulusevski's not really a guy who runs in behind, and
that
Richarlison and Son should be able to get in behind.
yeah, I mean Richarlison and Son are shoulder players. They like to play
Mm-hmm.
on the shoulder of defenders, right?
Right.
The problem with Saturday's game, and I don't know if you saw it, we had
Mm-mm.
9 offsides, right? It was
Wow.
almost schoolboyish, where not so not an offside trap. You remember when teams used to play the offside trap, right? It wasn't so much that. It was more Richarlison and Son not timing their runs. I mean, that's another example of them being off,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they were sometimes not running into offside positions. They were in offside positions.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that bad. There was 9 offsides. It was ridiculous. And with this game, even the linesman, because he took forever to put the flag up. I
Oh,
mean, like
wow.
Son received the ball clearly offside, 2 yards offside.
Right.
Carried on playing. Martinez came out. Son went around him. Son took a shot, open goal, hit the post. Another example of his season. The ball bounced out. Kane's got it, took a shot. Martinez saved it. And I'm like, somebody put a flag up. Anyone. What is going? I mean, this play went on, for another 8 or 9 seconds, right?
Uh-huh.
Which had 2 shots: play around in the goalie, a rebound off the post, another shot, and the camera went on the linesman, and he almost looked a little bit apologetic, like, "Oh, this is how we have to do it,"
Right.
like literally, that's how he looked, and I'm just like, that's just ridiculous.
That's
It's
ridiculous.
a matter of time before that happens, and someone snaps an ankle,
Yeah.
puts a knee out of place, they clash with the goalie, and then you'll have managers going absolutely berserk on the touchline.
For sure. For sure.
But the offside, we just never got to grips with that. It was ridiculous between Son and Richarlison, just
No,
continually.
they're experienced players. They need to know better than that.
Well, just look down the line most of the time.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be that hard.
Start your run horizontal rather than vertical. You
Yeah.
know.
I mean, a poor game all round. Even Mason said afterwards, we got to be a bigger team than this. I mean, it's just not good enough, you know.
Yeah.
But clearly the players are done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that there is part of me that goes, all right, I get that, I understand. Then
Mm-hmm.
there's other part is still like, guys, there's people that have travelled up to Birmingham to watch this game,
Mm-hmm.
right? You still got to get out there, And I'm sure if you ask them, they would say, well, we did give it our all. We thought we were giving it our all. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? No, you weren't.
Yeah,
Not
I
even
agree.
close. You know. So we're on 7th now, tied with Villa. God knows where we're going to end up. You know, um, it's interesting, right? Because I was looking at the tables yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, wouldn't it have been interesting if we'd have been in let's say 9th or 10th spot when Conte came in or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Would we be down there now with West Ham fighting our way out in with 30, 40 points?
Probably.
Probably, right? Based on what we've seen this season. So for me, it looks like Conference League or nothing. The players look like they're done. 2 more games to go. They want out. The term "we're on the beach already" is apt. That is where they are,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I'm concerned. Terrible.
Yeah.
Talking of terrible,
Not a good Sunday. Not a good Sunday. Uh, the Braves even gave up a 2-run lead or a 1-run lead in the ninth to lose, so they couldn't even pick me up. Just a tough day for Arsenal. It didn't necessarily start out a tough day. Prior to the game, rumors, I think the day before the game, David Ornstein reported that Zinchenko and Saliba were out for the season. And Arteta wouldn't confirm those. Arsenal released training pictures with Zinchenko in them. So people were like, well, maybe he is going to play. But that was totally the hoodwink Brighton, because Zinchenko wasn't going to play. And Tierney came in for him. Jorginho kept his place. And people were wondering if Arteta might start Trossard against his old team, and he didn't. Kept Trossard on the bench. And coming into the game, we had scored 3 or more goals in each of our last 6 home games. So we had to be feeling really good about that, and about coming off of the game against Newcastle. And, before we get into the game so much, I started this morning and read Arse blog, and Andrew does a great job of writing that, and I thoroughly enjoy reading it. But his take on the game, I think, was a little different than mine, in that he said he thought we were more focused on the threat that Brighton possessed than imposing ourselves on the game. And he wanted us to be a little bit more front-footed. But I thought we did a really good job of pressing them early in the game. I mean, I thought our press really bothered Brighton. And, people say, hey, you can't press Brighton. But we were really taking the ball off of them and keeping them in their own end early in the game. In the 3rd minute, we forced a corner from a back pass. We had forced them back, and one of their guys just was under so much pressure. He made a back pass to nobody, basically, and it went out for a corner. So I thought that we did a really nice job there. In the 5th minute, Martinelli got called for a yellow, or didn't get a yellow. He basically ran over Matoma. How he didn't get a yellow for that one, I don't know. But one of the questions that I have is, people say you can't press Brighton. Well, we pressed them, but it's difficult. Like in that opening 20, 30 minutes, we really pressed them good, but it's difficult to maintain your energy levels over that time. And like, if you don't score against them early, like we did, when we played them in Brighton, we scored early on them. We pressed them. We scored early on them. We had I think a 3-1 lead or 3-0 lead or something like that on them, and we scored early and really put them under the cosh a little bit. And we tried to come out and do that in this particular game, but a team can only keep those energy levels for so long. And once those energy levels drop and you haven't scored, then you're in a world of hurt. Because what Brighton does is Brighton spreads the field. I mean, they put people as far on either touchline as they can. So when you are going to press them, you have so much ground to cover. and they have so much open space that they can play into that it's really difficult when you aren't at 100% energy levels. And remember, in the preview issue or the preview episode, we talked about De Zerbi saying that, well, Arsenal was going to see the real Brighton. And what the real Brighton are is a bunch of hacking, fouling. Lee Dixon was talking about how great it is to see them play and how, beautiful their football is. Let me tell you, what they didn't do against Everton was when they lose the ball foul. But as soon as they lost the ball to us, they hacked us down. And in the 7th minute, Martinelli ran over Matoma. Well, 2 minutes later, Martinelli got taken out by Caicedo. And, that was a terrible challenge.
Well, Caicedo, I don't know if you saw Caicedo when he ran past Matoma, he put his hand out and got a slap from him.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that one's for you, bud.
That's right. And, the ref didn't call either one a yellow, and they were both yellows. And how many times have we said on the podcast, when you don't call those yellows, when you don't issue the yellow, Martinelli should have got a yellow. When you don't issue the yellow, people get injured, man. It's just so frustrating. But when Martinelli lasted another 10 minutes, and that was basically it. And we'll talk a little more about specific things that went on in the game. But Martinelli was the person that gave Brighton in their home fixture the most problems because he is extremely direct. And the way that you beat Brighton is, it's difficult to press them, but you can press them and turn them over. But if you do that, you have to score right away. Bang, turnover, one pass, in behind, score. And that's Martinelli for us. That is not Saka's game. Saka is not really a player that runs in behind. He is more of a technical, on the ball, beat a man or two with a dribble.
Yeah.
Great pass or a great shot, but he's not somebody that starts on the halfway line and outruns his marker into the penalty box like Martinelli does.
Doesn't have the pace, no.
So to lose him was really devastating for us because we brought on Trossard. And Trossard is basically a right-footed Saka. He's just not as physically strong and can't hold off defenders as well as Saka can. So we go from having one technical ball control winger and one direct, pacey dribble attacker to two technical wingers. And it was really difficult for us to get in behind them. And that was really the reason that we weren't able to really get anything going. After that foul, Ramsdale started going long. And we actually started beating them to second balls. We really couldn't do a lot with it. And we made some bad decisions, had some poor touches in the final third. But when they would press us, their midfield is so far forward that Ramsdale could kick it over them. We knew he was going long, so we could get our midfield kind of between their midfield and their center backs, and then we could pick up those loose balls. And we did a really nice job of that about midway through, early and midway through the second half. We just couldn't turn it into any goals. And that is exactly what we needed to do. And again, when there would be a turnover, they would hack us down. Tierney, on the one hand, had a great half defensively. He is really so good defensively, and he was so good that in the 35th minute, they switched Matoma over to Ben White's side as opposed to Tierney's side. Now, perhaps they thought that Zinchenko was going to be over there, and that's why they put Matoma over there. But Tierney really did a nice job of putting him in his pocket. So they moved him over to Ben White's side. On the negative part of Tierney, part of our attack, especially our direct attack, is Zinchenko. I think he leads us for final third entry passes. So not having him in that double pivot with Jorginho really hurt our ability to get in behind as they would press us. When we broke the press, we didn't really have anybody there that could deliver the killer ball in behind. And I think Tierney, in the first half, I think he had 7 touches and only made 4 passes. So we go from having our left back as our number one passer, or tied for our number one passer, to a left back who hardly ever touches the ball. And there's I don't know, an idea, or people are saying that Brighton kind of dominated the first half, or Brighton was on top in the first half, and that really wasn't the case at all. They had 65% possession, so that's a lot. They had 3 shots.
Yeah.
So that's not really threatening, I don't think. They had 1 shot on target for 65% possession. So when they had the ball, it was their center backs passing it around to their goalkeeper. That was their possession. Their possession really wasn't threatening our goal. They had a couple of opportunities, but nothing particularly major. So they had 65% possession, 3 shots, and 10 fouls. So that shows you how they played the first half. And that made it really tough. And when you have, finally, he gave out, the ref gave out a yellow card to their left back after his 3rd foul on Saka. But other than that, there really weren't any cards shown. So the game really turned into a slog. We're pressing them, they're pressing us. They can't really, they're not doing a great job of attacking us. We're not doing a great job of attacking them. And when we get the ball in their end, or we get the ball in, we have an opportunity to get in behind, they hack us down in the midfield. So it was really not a pleasing game to watch. So the first half ends 0-0. You have any thoughts on that?
The thing that stood out to me was the switch with Matoma, because he is a good player.
Oh, he's a great player.
No really doubt about that. And he started to give Ben White a nightmare, basically.
Yeah. He really did in the second half.
So, sensible move by De Zerbi in many ways. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I mean, Matoma scored a goal in the Brighton's home fixture, our away fixture. He scored 1 goal, and he scored a second goal, but it got ruled out. It was their 3rd goal. Would have made it 4-3 with about 5 minutes left in the game. But it would have made it 4-3, and it got ruled out for offside.
Yeah.
So,
Brighton's turning into like Sporting Lisbon. They're going to see how long they can hold on to their players.
Yeah.
Because Matoma and McAllister will probably not run out in a Brighton shirt next season.
That's right. And that's right. And, just I want to talk a little bit about De Zerbi kind of at the end of this a little bit. But Zinchenko.
Sliding on his knees.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But again, I think, well, let's get into De Zerbi now. Might as well just jump in there. The way that they play, they suck you in to attacking them. But they got nothing on the back end. They got Matoma, and that is about it. You know, in Manchester City's home fixture, Brighton still had 52% possession. You know, it's just the way they play. When they spread the field like they spread the field and they pass it around, it is just impossible for anybody to get the ball off of them.
Yeah.
So why try? I mean, that's my thing. You know, if there is a team that you let them have the ball in their end, let them have it because they can't hurt you. The only way they can hurt you is when you have half your team in their half. You know, play them on the break. And because when they play so wide, they can't stop you. They can't stop a counter. You know, when they turn the ball over in your half, even in your half, they are out of position to stop your counter. If they don't foul you in that first moment, you're behind them.
Yeah.
You know, again, having Martinelli would have been, you know, Trossard and Saka just can't run behind. And in fact, I think for part of that second half, we switched Jesus out to the wing and moved Trossard inside.
Yeah. Saka, and rightly so, similar to what I said about Højbjerg, Saka was looking really tired because he's played almost every minute for you.
Well, they've both played about 3,200
and a
minutes
World Cup
this year.
in between there.
Yeah, they both played about 3,200 minutes. So that's a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
But even so, it's not his game. He is not. He does not have the speed to run in behind, especially that guy he was going is Steuben. I mean, that guy is an athlete,
that guy's like
man.
He's like Carl Walker on freaking steroids.
He is. I mean, you know,
what the heck?
Yeah, Saka's not getting in behind that guy, even when that guy's up the field. You know, Saka's not getting in behind him. Now, you know, Martinelli could get in behind him, and again, not having him really hurt. But at the same point in time, you know, when we came out, Trossard did hit the bar in the 30th minute. So if that goes in, you know, it's a whole different game. Saka had a great shot, and it just barely went past the post. That could have, you know, been a goal. But the latter part of the first half really turned into kind of long ball versus long ball. And it kind of started at the beginning of the second half. You know, in the first minute of the second half, we were in their end and again pressed them really effectively. And Jesus took a shot that went out for a corner kick. So we had a corner in the first minute of the second half. You know, and like I say, it became we would kick it long over their midfield. They started kicking it to Matoma in behind our midfield because they knew we were effective pressing them. And then, you know, the game changes when they get the luckiest freaking goal, man. I mean, did you see the cross?
Yeah.
He just kicked it into damn ground and it just bounced. I mean,
it bounced nice. Yeah.
It was, I mean, just a total miss. I mean, there's no way he can get that ball over Tierney.
However,
Cal,
I recall seeing Odegaard score a similar goal and do his little basketball thing. Right? you remember that? Do you remember that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And you know, I mean, that's, you know, it's football.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, that's
going to happen,
you know,
right?
It's going to happen.
Nothing you can do about that stuff.
That's right. You know, it's easy to question the referee for one because Kivior gets fouled. McAllister goes sliding in. I don't think necessarily McAllister meant to, but he goes sliding in hits his ankle with his studs and causes his boot to go flying. And Kivior goes down, and Kivior is the guy that is supposed to be marking the person that scored. But he's down massaging his ankle instead of being there. On the other hand, you got to question Kivior. It's like, hey, man, the ball's in the penalty box. You're in the penalty box. You got to be on your feet. Go down after the ball goes out of play. So you got to question him a little bit about that too, that naivety. But once they got the goal, we were toast because then we had to press them.
Yeah.
And they have a 1-goal lead, and they can spread the field, and we're tired, and that was it. So I know Arteta criticized the players a little bit about not winning duels, and fair enough. But the way the game plan set up, and we whipped them at their place using the same game plan. So you got to understand it. But at the same time, man, if you are going to come flying out of the blocks and press Brighton, give it 10 minutes. And after that, just back off of them and kill them on the break. That's how you got to play those guys. That's how City's going to play them. You watch when City plays. City's going to let them have it in their end. And when they come across half field, they're going to start pressing them then and send Haaland in behind. That's how you beat those guys, because when they get the ball in your box, they got nobody that can do anything with it if you're fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But once they scored, that was it. And their second goal, as happy as Deservey was, Trossard with the most idiotic flick in midfield. So we took Jorginho and Xhaka out, and this turned into a small space game where it was pressing in midfield, a lot of intricate passing moves. Because when we would win the ball in midfield, they're right there. So in that, when you win it, you've got to be able to get it out of your feet quick and get it to somebody else. That ain't Xhaka's game. And when the ball would come to him, he couldn't get it out of his feet, number one. And number two, when the ball came to somebody else and he was the outlet, he would get it, not be ready for it, and the ball would bounce off of him like a wall. So this game was way too technical for him, and Arteta took him off. In the preview podcast, we talked about Jorginho, and I'd mentioned that it's hard to ask this guy to play 2 games in a week.
Yeah, he went missing yesterday.
Well, he doesn't have, he doesn't have the legs. So we asked him to play 3 games in a row. Basically 3 games in a week. He can't do that. And we brought Party in for him. Party has to be dealing with an issue or something, because Party is just not right. So we had major issues there. So when we took Xhaka out, we dropped Trossard into his midfield spot, which is an attack, kind of playing forward as an aid. And Trossard he goes brain dead and tries a flick around in midfield. What an idiot move. You can't do that shit against Brighton, man. They are all over you.
Right, yeah.
And, and the guy just one touch, bang, lobs Ramsdale. And Deservey was laughing his ass off. It's like, that's why we got rid of the guy. as soon on the bus, he was going to his director of football going, see, I told you.
For sure, yeah. Yeah.
That's why we didn't want that guy here. And so Trossard, I mean, he had a stink or two. He hit the bar, but he missed Jesus. He got the ball in the box. Jesus was square, had one guy to beat, and Trossard couldn't make a decision. You get the ball in the box, you got to get your head up, make a quick decision, and he couldn't make a decision, and they closed him out off of it. Really poor game from him, and disappointing too when he's going up against his old team. You thought for sure he would be extremely motivated. And their third goal, I've got no freaking idea.
Monty Python goal.
Yeah, I got no idea. The hell with them. Some dude scored it. Screw them. It didn't matter at that point. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
So, what were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I thought Xhaka up to that point was your best. Xhaka was your best player.
Ooh.
I mean, from a standpoint of just breaking up the play.
Yeah.
From that standpoint, we mentioned Jorginho went missing, Ben White, and what have you. You dropped 12 points in 7 games, right?
Yeah.
You've won 9 points out of 21. That
Thanks.
hurts.
Thanks, Gary Neville.
Oh, you're welcome. I can
but
just.
You're right.
I will say this, Cal. As bad as Tottenham are, and as bad as our game was against Aston Villa, the only thing that could make this season worse for me and Tottenham fans is to have you fuckers win the league. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
I bet.
To say that I was happy yesterday with that result, it's a bit of an understatement. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, the only bad thing about the weekend was Tottenham didn't play after Arsenal.
Yeah. I do have a question for you, though. Considering the season that you guys have had, right? Because in all fairness, if we'd have had that season, we'd be freaking giddy, right?
Absolutely.
But you had fans leaving in droves yesterday at 2-0 down. What do you think about that?
Don't ask me what they were thinking.
Do you know what I mean?
Let me tell you. They ought to be freaking giddy as hell. And so we play at Nottingham Forest on Saturday. And I think it's Saturday. And then on Sunday, we play at home to Wolves. And all I got to say is no matter the score of the Wolves game, everybody that is in that stadium needs to be up and cheering all game. And when the players do their lap around, it should be the biggest ovation that any Arsenal team has received.
Yeah.
In a regular season game since the last team that won the Premier League.
Right. I must admit, it did kind of surprise me, from the standpoint, again, the season that you've had, it's not like your Man City, no one's Man City, right? Where if you're going to win, if you're about to win the league, but now you're losing 2-0, I could see their fans walking out because their expectation level's up here.
Yeah.
You with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
But not you guys. I mean, everyone should have still been there roaring them on.
Sure.
Regardless.
Sure. That's why the Wolves game is going to be interesting. Or one reason the Wolves game is going to be interesting. So let's see. I mean, I'm going to give the fans a pass on this game because I know how I felt when that second goal went in. And it was like, shit, it's gone. It's gone. And the disappointment I felt in that moment was as big a disappointment I felt as an Arsenal, or right up there as I felt as an Arsenal fan in a long time. And the reason is because we had a really good team and a really likable team, you know. And so, the more you want something, the more disappointed you are when you don't get it.
That's
And I really wanted it for
preaching
this
to the
team.
choir here, brother.
Right. I really wanted it for me, sure, but I also wanted it for this team, because of what they have done and who they are and the way that they've carried themselves. So in a moment of disappointment like that, I'll say, okay, you know, but now that moment of disappointment has passed, how are the fans going to react going forward? And to me, that's really going to be the proof in the pudding as to whether we are a bunch of spoiled Arsenal fans or if we really appreciate the season that this team has given us.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's akin to like the season, was it 2016 with Leicester?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when a 5,000 to 1 shot comes along
Yeah.
and destroys our dreams, right? Like, if you were ever going to win the league, this was the year we were going to do it.
Oh,
Where
and
did they come from? Right? It's not Man
well,
City or Man United or Chelsea. It's this mob.
from an Arsenal fan perspective, we finished second, beat Leicester in the second half of the season to go into first place. And that summer, we spent a grand total of £10 million. So talk about opportunities lost. That season, I mean, is almost unforgivable for the management. And that's one reason that, a lot of people are still questioning right now. Okay, the season's lost. And we'll talk about what this game meant. But one of the things that it meant is, and this run that you pointed out that that we've come in with and that has been unsuccessful. And one of the things that has pointed out is what we need. This team is not good enough to win the league.
Well, and I think both Arsenal and Tottenham know that this year, in your case, could have been much harder. And for us, we could have been in a much worse position because Chelsea and Liverpool
Mm-hmm.
have not shown up to the races.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, they'll be in the race.
Possibly.
And Newcastle will be firing on all cylinders too, probably.
Yeah, Newcastle. I don't know that I'm buying Chelsea, but it'll be interesting to see.
Oh, I am.
Uh, well, you bought Chelsea this year, you know,
Yeah.
and it was obvious. I mean, Pochettino can get them going, so I would certainly be more bullish on Chelsea next year than I was this year. But so what Arsenal fans are going to be looking at is there's obviously some holes in the squad. But at the same point in time, there is a hell of a core there to build around. So this is going to throw it back into the Kroenkes' court. Are the Kroenkes going to come up with the cash to buy the players that it's going to take for this team to actually compete for 38 games? This year we competed for 35. Pretty good, way above expectations. But we need more players and we need more better players if we're going to compete for 38. So Arteta knows what we need. Edu knows what we need. The run-in was plainly obvious as to the areas of the team that need strengthening. Are the Kroenkes going to come up with the cash to make it happen? They didn't in 2015. You know, we bought Peter Cech for $10 million and that was it. You know, will they come up this year? So we've got the squad and the squad quality and the squad depth that we're going to need for next year. So here's what else it means. It means City are champions. They are the champions of the Premier League. But something I saw on Twitter that was interesting is a question. So is finishing second to Lance Armstrong really finishing second? So is finishing second to 138 charge Man City really finishing second? So Arteta, another thing it means is Arteta needs to do some reflection. You know, I think he needs to look at his game plan versus Brighton. He needs to look at how to play City. You know, there are those are two games, but there are also some other ones where he needs to look at and adjust basically what we did this year is we said we line up like this and we play like this. And we did that for 36 games. We did tweak it a little for Brighton in that he didn't really put Tierney directly in the Zinchenko role. He kind of moved Tierney more into the Xhaka role and had Xhaka play a little behind, more in the Zinchenko role. But still, the basic patterns of play, the basic structure was there. So I think he needs to look at, okay, to take this team forward, can we add a few bells and whistles? Can we maybe change something here, change something there, so that when we need to play teams where perhaps our stock and trade is not as effective, or there are opportunities to change what we do and better attack the opposition, can we do that? And this would be a great offseason for him to reflect and perhaps do some offseason game planning for those situations. And the next two games are going to be interesting to see if Arteta juggles the lineup. One thing that I didn't mention, so in the 76th minute, Arteta took, and interestingly enough, in the 75th minute of the game, Arsenal had 17 touches in the box and Brighton had 16. So again, you know, it wasn't a dominant performance by Brighton. Odegaard, in the 76th minute, Arteta took Odegaard and Jesus off, and he brought on Smith Rowe and Nketiah. So I made a note at that time, and I said, is Arteta playing the long game? Is he looking at this and saying, you know, if we are going to really win the league, we're going to need Smith Rowe. You know, we're going to need Nketiah to be productive. And was he putting him on to help win the Brighton game because he thought they could do something? Because if he was, I really question it, because Odegaard and Jesus, I mean, when you're taking them off, you're almost like waving the white flag.
That's it. You've given up right there, really.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, so, you know, I'm wondering, was he playing the long game? Because, and so that's going to make the next two games interesting to see, is Smith Rowe going to get more playing time? Is Nketiah going to get more playing time? Is Vieira going to get more playing time? Because these are all guys that we're going to need if we're going to play in the Champions League and compete in the Champions League and compete in the Premier League. So that's going to make the next two games interesting. And finally, what it meant is Arsenal had a great season, far beyond my expectations, far beyond anyone's expectations. And not only were the results great, but the football they played and the way that they went about playing football was so much fun to watch. And as a fan, you really enjoy teams where you feel you're almost part of because of the way that they play and the enthusiasm um, and the positive way that they play. A great season, been so much fun. Again, the most fun season I've ever had as an Arsenal fan.
Yeah. Well, as they say in the north of England, it was fun, but it was all for naught.
That is no, it wasn't for Nout. There will be no trophy, at the Emirates.
Yeah.
But the memories that I have and the feeling that I have for this team and the information and the the experience that the players and the managers have gained are going to be invaluable because I mean, let's be honest. Unless the Premier League comes down on City and comes down hard, and I fully believe that they should.
They
But
should.
but unless they do that, if we win one Premier League between now and the next 10 years, Saka's 21 now, he'll be 31 10 years from now. If he wins one Premier League title in an Arsenal shirt, it'll be amazing. You know, I mean, and because that is where we are with City. If we just win one, it'll be incredible. Because when the season starts, there's Man City and maybe one, two other teams that have a chance. And that's it. So, and I haven't lost sight of that fact. So, Rick, you don't know who Tottenham is playing this weekend. Do you know if they're playing Saturday or Sunday?
We're playing Saturday. We've got Brentford.
Ah, nice.
I mean,
Another London derby.
yeah. I at this point I can just cross my fingers, you know, see how it goes.
Sure.
I think it could be one of those games, it's one of those end of season, Tottenham are done. Brentford will still want to finish as high as they can, you know. Could be a high scoring game,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And then we got Leeds after that. And who knows where Leeds will be. But if Leeds need a point or two from us, then they're going to give us a game on the final day of the season too.
Oh, let me tell you, Big Sam's going to have them ready.
Yeah. But by that point, we won't care either.
Yeah. Hey, and Big Sam may think it's an audition for the Tottenham job.
Yeah, God, no. Absolutely not. I like Big Sam. I think Big Sam's a funny guy. He's the kind of guy you can go out with and have a beer. I think he's got some great stories. But
Oh,
no
you
manager
know
on
he
my team,
does.
mate.
You know he does. Early in the game, they showed Vincent Company in the owner's box at the Emirates. And after the game, the season comes to a close. There's going to be Big Sam and Daniel Levy sharing a handshake and a few words on the pitch at the end of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. But Big Sam will be surrounded by bubblegum wrappers.
No, he's gonna hand Daniel Levy his resume right then.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Arsenal are going to Nottingham Forest, and obviously Forest is going to be into the game.
Yeah.
Again, it's going to be interesting to see how Arsenal reacts because Arteta ripped him a pretty good one after the game. He's usually he usually is reserved in his comments, and he was not happy. He certainly pointed the finger at himself because they asked him, and the first thing he said, "Well, responsibility's mine." And when managers say that, there's going to be some chewing going on in the dressing room. So it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal comes out for that game. Forest is really a fun team to watch, considering they are, relegation fodder. Johnson and Gibbs White are fantastic players. I mean, they are top six level players, and I believe their center. I forget their center forward's name. He's a huge guy, and he's all of a sudden starting to come good this year too. So they're going to have they're going to have a lot of attacking threat, especially on the counter because all those guys can run. So it'll be a really interesting game to watch. Awesome. Hey, thanks to everybody for listening. We really, really appreciate it. You can follow Rick Captain America on Twitter at ATF Podcast 1. You can follow me at ATF Podcast 2. Rick, you want to plug the website?
Yeah, check out all the episodes. This one will be loaded onto there real soon at ArsenalTottenhamFanPodcast.com, and check me out on Instagram at Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast. And
hey, don't
one
forget
last thing, just a quick final thought. No, don't like to see anyone relegated, but Southampton made the cut. But I would just like to say goodbye to Theo Walcott.
Oh no,
we don't forget, sir. We don't forget.
Theo might be showing up somewhere in the Premier League. You never know.
Yeah, as a commentator. Good luck, Theo.
That's right. Hey, don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. Thank you for listening. Come on, you Gunners. We love you no matter what.
Come on, Tottenham. We don't want the Conference League.